Hello, friends. This is a channel where we talk about plant-based eating for busy people. Um, but we also talk about wellness, which is all-encompassing. So we're talking about, um, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual wellness. And I have had an epiphany that I just want to share. And I'm not a scientist and I'm not a psychologist. I am, I don't have credentials, but this is something that resonates in my soul. So I use that as a measure sometimes to know if something is true or not. I kind of believe, I absolutely believe in divine guidance and in that inner voice that tells us what's true and what's not. And this is something that I know to be true because it resonates in my heart and my soul. Let me tell a story. When I was probably 10 or 11, I was on the family farm, which is where I grew up, and I was with my grandpa. And we were out, it was in the spring because I remember whatever crop it was in the field that day was small. And we were irrigating, and Grandpa had sent me down the field to probably check on how far down the field the water had gone. At that time, we irrigated with furrows, so we either set siphons from the ditch or we turned water into the furrows, and that's how the crops were watered. And so I ran down the field, and then I ran across the field, and I didn't think anything of it. But as I went back to the top of the field and approached my grandpa, his back was to me and he didn't know that I was coming. And I heard him say to my uncle, "That girl is a runner. She has a really good stride." And something just changed in my brain. And I knew with a certainty that I was a runner. My grandpa had said it, had observed it. And ever after that, I took on that identity. In PE, we used to, on Fridays, we would have to run a mile for PE, and we'd run all around the fairgrounds and the rodeo grounds and the city park back to the school. And I remember my friends hated that, but I loved it because I was a runner. And I was always the first one. And I felt really fast and I felt unstoppable. I never seemed to get tired. I felt like I could run forever because I was a runner. And that went with me for my whole life. When I was in high school, I would run with my brothers and sisters. We lived in Moab, Utah. If you've ever been there, you know how beautiful the river canyons are. We used to have the honor and the privilege of running down those river canyons in the mornings. My brothers and sisters would go with me, and after I was married, and I've never done marathons or anything like that. I haven't really had the desire, but I just love to run, and I've always sort of felt a secret sort of satisfaction and pride that I know how to breathe right, and there's just something in me that feels like I could run forever. And so contrast that to another little something that happened in my brain. I can't pinpoint the exact moment that this one came to be, but at some point I decided that I couldn't remember things, that I was scatterbrained and spacey. And I knew from that point on that I am forgetful. And I found myself often telling people, "Oh, I can never remember anything. Like I'm really bad at remembering things. I'm really scatterbrained. I'm really spacey. You'll have to forgive me. I know working with me is hard. This is a challenge for me. I just can't remember things. And in the same way that I felt powerful with the running identity, I felt very what's the word I would look for? Very hobbled, very disabled in a way, with this, with what I perceived as a disability and as a weakness of not being able to remember things. It shaped everything, as a mother, as a friend, as a, as a business person in my work. In my mind, things were 10 times harder because I had to deal with this weakness and this problem that I had. And it was really unfortunate to me that other people didn't have to fight with this problem, and it made me less effective. I excused myself in my brain all of the time. Like, I'm doing the best I can. It's just too bad I have this problem. And recently, in the last year, I started to have little, what I felt were whisperings from my Heavenly Father telling me, that's actually a lie. Like, you have told yourself that, but it's not actually true. Like, that's something you have made up. And your brain is actually more capable than you think that it is. And even though your brain works differently, like, you're, instead of focusing intently on certain things, your focus jumps back and forth. But that's not a disability. You can actually work with that. You could actually use that in your favor, and you could do things in short little bursts. And other epiphanies started to come to me about that, until maybe you've experienced this, until I couldn't ignore it any longer. It's like there were so many signs, there were so many whisperings, that it was time for me to recognize that I am more capable than I thought. And so I decided to take that idea and experiment with it, and to see if I really could be a different person if I believed what I think are, communications from an all-knowing Father who loves me. So I have started doing the experiments, and one of these stories I'll just tell you right now. I went to a retreat recently, a health retreat, which I can't wait to talk to you about. I'm going to tell you who put it on, what I learned there, and I am so excited. I'm going to do a program with them. I joined their membership. I have fallen in love with this program, with this team, with this individual who started the program. It's called plantwise.com if you want to go there right now and look, but we'll talk about that another day. I went to this retreat and just learned some amazing things and hung out with some amazing people. And I came back home and I wanted to tell my kids, some of my kids were visiting, and I wanted to tell them about some of the things that I learned. And I found myself falling into an old pattern from earlier days, and I started to tell the stories, and then I said, I started to tell about a certain individual, about a really incredible story that happened to her in her lifetime and how inspiring it was to me. But as I was trying to tell them the story, I fell back in the old pattern of, let's see, I can't remember. I just don't remember, what happened before that. And I can't remember why she said that. And I'm like, I just, you know how I am. I don't remember things very well. I'm just not sure. And then my son-in-law said to me, he's like, hold on, because I had told them this new thing that I'm trying. He said, just try to remember it. Just think for a minute. And so I stopped lying to myself and stopped that negative talk. And I thought, let's see if I can remember. And I did. I remembered. It took me a minute. I had to go over it in my head, but I remembered the story. I remembered the details of the story. And I was almost upset and angry because I thought, you see, this is evidence that all my life I have cheated myself because I took on the identity of having this, what I considered a disability. And I decided I was a person who couldn't remember things. How many times do we do that? I can't do math, like, or I'm not a hard worker, or whatever it might be. I'm a lazy person. Lies, all lies. We have these marvelous bodies and brains, and we're different from one another, but we are magnificent. And we can do, I am convinced, hundreds of times more than we think that we can. And that is something that I am working with right now, running with right now. And it's doing wonders for my mental wellness, but it's also enriching my life. And if it's really true, which I think that it is, then many things are in the process of improving in my life. And so maybe you'll find that thought useful. I hope so. Have a wonderful day.